right, everyone, welcome back to the special edition of Inside D2 Football. Along with our PSAC columnist, Cary Moyer, I am Chuck Bitner. And Cary, we are back to talk about the PSAC East Division. If you watched the West Division video, which we did shortly before this one, we are here now to walk through the East Division, talk about the 8 teams that make up that division, spotlight some of the top players, the teams, talk about some of the expectations as we get ready to jump into this season. But before we kick it off, I do want to mention we are getting ready for kickoff. We're just a day away, so we're getting right down to the last final preparation. We've got a couple teams that are kicking off tomorrow night, which would be Thursday, the season opener. Of course, most of the PSAC won't really get the season going until next week when all the teams will be in action. But we are chomping at the bit. We are ready for some live football action. We've got tons of things on the d2football.com homepage to get you ready for the season. Of course, we've got columns and podcasts for all the other leagues that are out there. I would highly encourage you, if you haven't seen the Elite 100 watch list video, go watch that. There's a lot of players that we're going to talk about in this video that are featured on that Elite 100 watch list. Of course, the top 25 poll, see how everybody measures up as we get ready to start the season. But, Cary, all the preseason stuff, all the talking, all the research, the writing, the preparation, we are almost done. We have made it. It's game week, and now we're just 24 hours away from kickoff. Are you excited?
Yes, I am. And huge thank you to you, Chuck. Again, we had a lot of fun again at the end of 2024 with doing these shows for the Super Region 1 playoffs and having a very deep PSAC and the amount of teams we have getting on and being able to talk about the West and now getting to talk about the East, saves on a little writer's credit. So, but again, columns will be coming back here through the season, but to do our preview and kind of, talk about week 0 here coming up, very excited and, a lot of unknowns, a few knowns, but, again, it's about time to take the gloves off. Everybody's going to get on the field and we're going to find out, what each of these teams has.
All right. Well, let's dive right into it for the East Division. Now, as we did with the West Division, if you already watched that video, we're going to go through these in the order that they appeared in the preseason coaches poll. So we'll just kind of take their lead, go through the teams in that order, and we're going to talk about what we like about each of these teams, any concerns that we have, spotlight some of the top players. So to kick us off, we're going to look at the defending PSAC champions, Cary, the Kutztown Golden Bears, coming off another remarkable season that they had, of course, an 11-0 regular season campaign. PSAC championship game win over California. Got the first round bye heading into the playoffs. Did lose that game in very dramatic fashion in the second round to Slippery Rock on that remarkable overtime 2-point conversion play. Brought the Golden Bears season to an end. But as we get ready to kick off this season, I feel like this team has probably not lost a step. In fact, they're probably quite a bit better than they were last November. I'll leave it to you to walk us through some of the players that you want to spotlight, Cary, but I will say overall, when I look at the teams nationally that make up our top 10 and even further into the top 25, I think this might be one of the most complete teams in the country as we kick off the season.
Absolutely agree. And, just echoing what you said, please check out everything that's been up so far with d2football.com, the Elite 100 watch list. We've got 3 guys from this Kutztown Golden Bear team, and it all starts up front. We got 2 guys from the offensive line on there. And, of course, on the D-line, Freddie Redder, the PSAC East Defensive Player of the Year. Also an All-American wrestler at Kutztown last year, their Athlete of the Year at Kutztown University. But, offense, you look at the names that are listed here. Again, add O-lineman Billy Everett here, another guy that was the Elite 100 watch list player for us. But Judd Novak and Chuck, I know you and I have talked about this, maybe not putting up all the big numbers and the fancy stuff. The dude is a football player. He's a winner. He came from a Wayne High School program here in Pennsylvania, and he operates and he leads that offense and does what they need to do. With Stewart back at running back, another guy I highlighted a lot last year with Burkhart running back. to me, kind of old school, tough mentality, kind of like that old fullback mentality. But the dude's got hands. You can swing him out and he catches passes. I mean, just a lot coming back. They, again, when you talk about, coaching staffs, O-line, D-line coaches do a great job there. All 5 of their O-line guys had PSAC postseason honors last year. Again, having 2 guys coming in, our Elite 100 watch list coming in, incredible. Defensive side of the ball, Coach Fargo and the job that he does week in, week out, getting those guys ready, when, plugging guys in when there's injuries. Just an incredible job. And again, with, some of the names here that definitely stood out last year, Freddie Redder, but that whole D line did an awesome job. And if you start focusing just on Freddie, what they have up at D line and linebacker, Johnson listed here, Brendan Heil, and they've always been traditionally very strong in the secondary as well. I cannot, agree enough on what you said there. And we've talked about a lot of teams and a lot of unknowns. Again, you always got plug in for some guys, but as far as a most complete team coming back, at least from the PSAC end of things, the least amount of question marks here. And again, Coach Clements just he has those guys ready week in, week out. Can't say enough about the excitement for I have going into the season to see what the Kutztown Golden Bears do again in 2025.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Again, I think this is probably one of the most complete teams, at least as we start the season. We'll see once we get a few weeks in what that looks like. But, the systems that they run are very modern, Cary, but their approach is old school. They are built to be strong and physical at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. You talked about all the all-conference players on the offensive line and also the defensive line. That's really where it starts with these programs. They've got a lot of skilled players. They've got really good athletes in the back half, but they are a line of scrimmage team. And I know that really appeals to both you and I because we know that that's where football games are won and lost. But I will also echo Judd Novak is one of those players who may not necessarily get the accolades because the way their offensive system works, he's not going to put up a huge bunch of numbers. But I'll tell you, if there's a quarterback in the country that you want to take to run you through, the stretch run and go win a game, he is definitely a guy that you want. Somebody who never gets too high, doesn't get too low. He's not really exuberant when things are going well, never gets down if things aren't going well, just all the natural leadership skills that you want out of that position. So we won't be shocked even if we get down to the end of the season and he's not somebody who shows up on the Elite 100 team. But no doubt in my book, he is a top, probably top 6, top 8 quarterbacks in the entire country. So definitely want to give him a shout out. And as we talk about where they are at the start of the season, let's take a look at the Golden Bears schedule. Pretty much the same schedule as last year. They open with Assumption, a program that they are very familiar with. Played the Greyhounds quite a few times over the years. That series has kind of now gone in favor of the Golden Bears, but that's still a very solid team, Cary. That's not an easy opening game, and then you have to take a long trip out to Edinburgh. So those are teams that we expect the Golden Bears to match up with favorably, but that still is not an easy start to the season.
No, looking at Assumption, again, we know the 2024 Kutztown Golden Bear team and what they did. In some previous years, it was a little bit of a slow start against Assumption. Again, with where this program is at now, with the guys they have coming back, I would expect that there would be a positive result there. So, and then traveling out to Edinburgh, that game was flipped last year. It was here, and I know that's a key matchup for them, and kind of again, some changes out at Edinburgh that we talked about in the West, but that was a good thing of kind of last season's teams, very much built the same way. So it was a good thing to kind of, get into that, knock them down, drag them out type of mentality with another team. And then, moving on. So Gannon, again, I think that we talked about with the West, a lot of question marks there. Shepherd, not kind of at the top level the last few seasons that they are being at. Shippensburg, a lot of questions. We'll talk about them in a little bit. Lock Haven, Millsville. So really, it's there's a real chance here for the Kutztown Golden Bears to really get established, gel as a team heading into, probably when that, at least early on, people are circling on their calendar, November 1st with East Stroudsburg. So that was different. It was up there last year. That was one of those night games, and it was earlier. But as we head into the November part of the schedule, having that East Stroudsburg, we'll talk about in a minute, as a top tier team in the PSAC East, that'll be a test. And of course, but again, we talked about our teams in the West. We've got Slippery Rock, IUP, Calipa up at the top. But could this be a potential no schedule change that last week of the season where IUP would be coming to town, potentially in the West to meet the Golden Bears in the PSAC championship. So, we'll have to see how it shakes out. A lot of football to play before we get there.
Yeah, I love the fact that the matchup with East Stroudsburg is late in the season. It was early the last couple of years. I like that that's late in the season because, Cary, I think you and I agree with the coaches that the number 2 team heading into the season in the East Division is East Stroudsburg. I really like what the Warriors have. Now, I've got a few questions about the skill talent on offense, but Sean McTaggart is a lot to build around. One of the better quarterbacks they've had there in recent memory, and that is saying something if you know the Warriors program. He is definitely an asset for them to build an offense around. I do have some questions about some of the other talent that will be around him. They did lose a lot, but from I think their top 2 running backs, top couple of receivers, there's a lot to rebuild there. But the defense looks really good. And if they can just backfill a couple of key pieces on offense, I think this is a team that's ready to pick up right where they were at the end of last season.
Without a doubt. And again, Kutztown, of course, in our top 10 in our preseason top 25 poll. For those folks who may have missed it, East Stroudsburg did not crack the preseason top 25, but was in that next group of 5 teams under consideration. So again, as we go through here and hopefully have some success early on, again, great coaching staff. Love talking to those guys, when I'm at games. But, you talk about McTaggart, just a few seasons ago was kind of quarterback by committee, going through, the early parts of the season, midseason injuries, things like that. But, having that, defined solid piece there. Again, what they do with quarterback training, of course, with Coach Twig there, and what they do in the offseason and through the season with quarterback training and some of the stuff they do, it's a great place to be a quarterback at. And so, again, like you said, we'll see maybe some question marks here on offense. But, defense should definitely be a strength again. And very excited to see where the Warriors go this year again. They'll be kicking off here in week 0, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But definitely, I think with the coaches poll, having them in at number 2, they are definitely going to make some noise, just like they did last year in the PSAC in the East and in the overall picture. And, potentially, knocking on the door again with the Super Region 1 playoff bracket when all the dust settles.
Yeah, 10-2 a year ago, phenomenal football season. Of course, they had the close game with Kutztown, which was at home. And then, of course, the other loss was at California in the playoffs. And that was a really fun game to watch. Came right down to the very end. Warriors definitely could have won that game and moved on in the playoffs. Just didn't quite go their way. And they finished 10-2 overall. I think as we look at their schedule, Cary, I think this sets up nicely for them to work through whatever growing pains they might have offensively. And I don't think they're going to struggle on offense. I really don't. But they do have to figure out the depth chart and the packages that they're going to use at the receiver position. Then they do have to identify kind of who's on the depth chart at the running back position. They do have a couple of guys who contributed last year who I think are ready for bigger roles. But still, they have to kind of work out what that looks like. I think the schedule sets up pretty nicely for them to work through some of those things against teams that they match up with favorably. Not that any of these games are easy, But I do think the schedule sets up nicely for them to work through whatever kind of things that they need to kind of identify about their offense before they really get into the meat of their season early in October.
No, and again, we talked about Edinburgh. That's some question marks in their week 0 game. They've had the ongoing series with Pace, for the last few years. But again, looking at the schedule, and again, a lot of football to play, a lot of ins and outs. People staying healthy, and all the pieces that go into as you go through game prep, each week in the season. But very favorable schedule. Crossover game with Gannon, and then Lockhaven, Westchester, Bloom, Ship, Shepherd, and talked about it just a minute ago. But the one again, don't want to jump the gun. It's week by week, but that November 1 game then later in the season this year at Kutztown is, I think, one that will definitely have a lot of eyes on it from implications in Super Region 1, and both Kutztown and East Stroudsburg could very well both be sitting at positions in our top 25 poll at that point of the season when they clash on November 1st.
All right. Yeah. And I never like to wish the season away, but I am already looking forward to that November 1st day. There may be some surprises that happen here and there, but we know that's going to be a really important game nonetheless. And I'm already looking forward to that one. All right. Well, at number 3 in the coaches poll, Cary, maybe a small surprise. And not because I don't think that Westchester could be here in the 3rd place by the end of the season, but normally these things kind of represent the way things finished last year. But the coaches are showing some confidence in this Rams team. And I think it probably points to the fact that, yes, they were 4-6 a year ago, but they had a lot of one-score games that came down to the last couple of plays, a play here, a play there. They're possibly a 7-3 football team at the end of last season. So it feels like maybe the coaches were giving them a lot of credit for some of the competitive form that they showed, regardless of that record.
No, and last season was Coach Greco's first season there, and it was that thing of getting into a new system and kind of gelling as a team. And I think that was one of the things of they made strides week after week, and finished the season I think was something to build on coming in. From the offensive side of things, Cooper Jordan, a lot of postseason accolades for him. Again, dynamic player, and is really spark plug to that offense. And kind of as he goes, I think the offense will go this year again. So definitely the standout to watch on the offensive side of the ball. And on the defensive side of the ball, again, one of our season Elite 100 watch list guys with linebacker Connor Noble, who had transferred in from Temple, a couple of seasons ago, just rock solid. Connor, had a lot of tackles, was a lot of, weekly accolades there, with the PSAC East being the player of the week defensively, and kind of the rock on that side of the ball for the Golden Rams.
Yeah, we'll see. I think there's a lot to work out on that offensive side of the ball. Yeah, Cooper Jordan's a great talent, really good athlete, one of the most exciting players in this league, but they still have a lot to build out around him. And I think the offensive line is still pretty young, and not a ton of production in terms of touches from last year coming back. Now, again, in this era of college football, we just don't know what we don't know. They could have some really talented players that they're sitting on that they brought in the offseason that we just haven't really seen. But I think that's a really big question mark. What is around Cooper Jordan to help them really be the offense that could maybe help them challenge for more wins in 2025? But we will have our eyes on the Golden Rams as they get set to start the season. Let's take a look at that schedule. They open up at Bentley. Thrilling game they had with Bentley last year. I think that was a walk-off field goal for the Falcons on the final play of the game, which was kind of an ominous start to the season for the Rams. They remember Westchester started 0-4 last year and then finished 4-2. So totally get why there's confidence from the coaches in this program coming into this season. The way they rebounded and really turn their season around. But I feel like that walk-off field goal from Bentley really sort of set the tone for how they were going to have some of those types of games that just didn't go their way. So they'll open at Bentley and then head to California. Very tough way for the Golden Rams to kick off this new season.
So again, many years now, the opening game, the relationship they've had with Bentley. I remember a few years ago, Chuck, you and I were both down, at the Golden Rams when Bentley was down there, catching those early games. But that's a long-standing series to open the season. California, again, one of our preseason top 25 teams that we talked about from the PSAC West. Some question marks there, that they've in, but again, high expectations out of Cal. Seton Hill, we talked about some question marks. We'll talk about the Bill in a little bit. October 4th, East Stroudsburg. That'll definitely be a test, a good measuring stick to see where they're at. At this point in the season, I expect the Golden Rams to have more success early in the season than they did, to start last season, as you had mentioned. And of course, then, into the meat of the PSAC schedule, Shepherd and Lockhaven cuts down, of course. That's going to be a test for each team, weeks in and out. And nice that they were able to get a November 15th game there. So, again, one of the teams in the East would have a hole in the schedule at the end, with Mercyhurst starting over in the PSAC West and not being in the mix last season. So being able to get that game with Assumption at the end. And, it's something to kind of keep an eye on too. I know we talked about it at the national level with, the Super Region 1 playoff and, just the formats and, somebody coming from the conferences. So bookends here with Bentley and Assumption for the Golden Rams.
Yeah, no doubt. There's no way to predict at this point in the season, but if they do in fact play Assumption, and of course it's not etched in stone because if Westchester wins the East, then they would play the West Division champ. But if they do end up playing Assumption, there could be a lot on that line potentially for both teams. So because we expect that Assumption will be in contention for a playoff spot out of the Northeast 10. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Well, we'll go from the Rams to the Rams. Shepherd, little bit of a modest season for them a year ago. They finished at 6-5, a few tough games along the way. Certainly not the standard for what we expect out of the Rams. This is typically a team, Cary, we expect to be up there battling for the PSAC East division, in line for a playoff spot. Bit of a drop last year, just a few losses that we didn't necessarily expect from them. And I think that it's going to be a little bit of a tough rebound because there's a lot of retooling that they will be doing on the offensive side of the ball. But we talked about some coaching additions that are really exciting in the West Division. Tell us a little bit about the new offensive coordinator for Shepherd.
So again, we talked about this, with some of the OCs that are coming in. Of course, is coming in with that, D1 FCS experience most recently. I think that it's part of a bigger picture here. Again, quarterback, for so many years with Tyson Bagent there. Again, my little kind of talked about this with our West show too, of, kind of shout out to D2 as those final NFL rosters were being, finalized. I think we were seeing 60 D2 guys still on NFL rosters, when those final cuts were made. Of course, Bagent, quarterback number 2 right now with the NFL Bears. But, the last time when the Rams were at the top, I mean, you look at that team, Fisher, O-lineman going to the NFL, and Walker, tight end, having a shot with the Ravens, and Ronnie Brown, running back, having a shot with the Buccaneers. I mean, 4 guys from that team when they were at the top. I think we've seen the question mark, at the quarterback position, and we'll have to see how that shakes out. New OC, new system coming in. What are we going to see from the Rams, with quarterback? So again, traditionally always very solid up front. We've got Brandon Carr is one of our O guys that is going to be one of our Elite 100 preseason watch list players there. And on defense, they've always been traditionally, strong on defense. So, some question marks. But again, as we talked about with some teams in the West and kind of, Shepherd is very much, in my mind, like when we talk about the IUPs and the Slippery Rocks and the Cows, the expectation in Shepherdstown is excellent. Excellence, anything less than that is not okay. So again, a little bit of a not so common year last year, but I expect them to, kind of make that step back again. They're right now picked, third in the coaches poll, but Coach McCook has been there a long time and does a great job, has a great staff around him, and expect a uptick from last season for the Rams.
Yeah, I'll be really curious to see what kind of response they have to that, because 6-5 is not a bad season. There's plenty of teams that'd be very happy with that, but we know that's not the standard for them. So to really be out of contention for the postseason by the end of October is just not what we expect in Shepherdstown. So I'll be very curious to see what kind of response they have for that. I think they're in good shape on the defensive side of the ball, Cary, and I think that they're going to be pretty solid in the offensive line. It seems like it's a common theme for a lot of these teams. It's sort of the skill positions where they need some retooling to do. And of course, that all important quarterback position. But I'm with you. I love the Rob Ambrose hire. That's, a coach that did some amazing things at Towson, which was a program that was just dormant for a long period of time. He got them all the way to the national championship game a handful of years ago. So that's a great addition for the Rams to have him in to run their offense. And when we take a look at their schedule, we actually had talked about this at the end of the PSAC West show when we looked at the schedule. Really like this season opener at Frostburg State. Of course, that's still a newer program in Division II in the Mountain East Conference. So, of course, if Shepherd was still in the MEC, that would be an annual rivalry with them. But I really like this. I really like this out of conference get for the Rams to play Frostburg.
No, and then we did talk about with the West show. Again, outside of the my focus on the PSAC, I was kind of always keeping an eye on the season Frostburg State was having last year, and was kind of rooting for them. Relatively new and making the jump, into D2, but it was neat to see, and where they were going to be and where things would shake out for them at the end. So, what an incredible crossover game, here in week 0, going to Frostburg State, for the Rams. So, and then Slippery Rock, of course, is the preseason pick by the coaches in the PSAC West. Again, incredible year last year, and their run through the playoffs. And then another crossover game with Clarion. So, again, Frostburg State should be a great game. But when you look at just through the opening of the season in September, you got Slippery Rock, the top pick in the West, and you have Kutztown then to wrap up September with the top pick in the East. So a lot of tests early on for the Rams. Of course, then not an easy schedule going through the East this year, and then East Stroudsburg, to wrap up in October.
I think if they could manage to beat Frostburg, which that's going to be a very difficult game. I think if they could manage to win that game, that Slippery Rock game becomes really, really interesting to me. And the thing I'd point out there, Cary, is that they actually have a week off between those two games to learn about, how things go at Frostburg, what worked well, what they want to refine, what they want to get better at. And of course, we know coaches always say that you improve the most between your first game and your second game, and they have a whole week to just work on getting better after that Frostburg game. So that could be a big factor in making that Slippery Rock contest a really interesting game.
Yeah, opportunity to make a statement.
That's what speaks to me, is if Shepherd has a team that can get them back where they want to be, where they traditionally are, what a great way to state that and put everybody on notice, and to potentially earn a big win at Slippery Rock if they're able to do it. So definitely an interesting contest. So we'll go from Shepherd to the team picked 5th, but actually finished 3rd last year in the coaches poll. So I'm sure the Huskies kind of feel like they're a little underserved here in the coaches poll with the season that they had, finished with a winning record for the first time since 2018, 6-5 overall, finished in third place in the division. And Cary, I think if I look at their offense, there is a lot that they have coming back. They bring back a ton of the skill players. They've got a seasoned quarterback in KJ Riley, a couple of receivers. Jerry Griffin Batchelor, probably a playmaker that doesn't get talked about enough in the PSAC. At the running back position, I don't know if people really know this, Cary, but this team played without a healthy running back on the roster for most of last season. They just got decimated by injuries at running back. I think reloading that room with a bunch of healthy bodies to start off the season, if they can stay healthy there, it's going to make a huge difference. I know they feel that they've added some depth and some talent at the offensive line. So I think offensively, they're going to be very well set. I think where there's more questions would be on the defensive side of the ball, where they graduated a lot of players, especially in the defensive line. So that's going to be what I'll be watching for with this Huskies team as the season kicks off.
No, but I think a common theme that we've talked about here, again, everything starts up front. So that's, without saying, but the amount of playmakers and seasoned veteran folks that they're bringing back at the skill position on offense, I would definitely put that in the plus category for the Huskies.
Yeah, and it's also year two with this offensive system. They brought in a new offensive coordinator prior to last year, Tim Landis, who had prior head coaching experience. It's a very intricate system that they run. And there definitely were some early season growing pains. I'm really excited to see what they can do in year two with that system, with some healthy bodies back. I think it can make a big difference in the type of offensive product that the Huskies will have. And as we take a look at their schedule, it's the same schedule as a year ago, just swap home and away. So they will open next week at Fairmont State. Played down there a couple of years ago, got down a few scores and rallied and actually took the lead, and then unfortunately lost that very, very late in the game. But they actually beat Fairmont at home a year ago. And then Seton Hill and Edinburgh, the crossovers on the early side of the season, and then Ship and Lock Haven to get the PSAC East division scheduled. So, nothing is easy. And when you're still trying to build up a program, you don't take anything for granted, but I like the way the first part of this schedule shapes up for Bloom. Of course, some really difficult East division games as we get into the second half of the season.
Yeah, so my little takeaway for Bloomsburg is turn the corner. So again, heading into the season, and I think the early season matchups here are very favorable to do that. I mean, the reality of it is, again, don't want to wish away the season, but having success at Fairmont State. There's some question marks, we talked about with our PSAC West, with Seton Hill, Edinburgh, Shippensburg, there's some question marks there. I mean, realistically, there's a great opportunity for success here early on, heading into, into the middle of October, and then, right into the East Stroudsburgs, the Shepherds, and then finishing the season with Kutztown and Slippery Rock. But there's an opportunity here to gel as a team and have a lot of early season success for the Huskies.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. They're the inverse of a lot of the teams we've talked about, because the Huskies are very well established at those skill positions on offense. Offensive line should be better than it was a year ago, and it's really more on the defensive side where we are looking for some holes to be filled there with the Huskies.
And Chuck, I think you can probably attest to this, but when you look at again, it's a pretty meaty schedule there in the second half. But when you hit November, up on the hill at Bloomsburg, all bets are off. It's a entirely different atmosphere in November. Up on the hill at Bloomsburg.
Be ready for the wind. All right. Well, we'll go from the Huskies to the Lock Haven Bald Eagles, just down the road, actually part of the same university at this point with Commonwealth University. Lock Haven, Cary, it's really hard to overstate the impact that Dan Mulroney had on this program in the short time that he was there. Back-to-back 5 and 6 seasons. I know that doesn't really sound very impressive for most programs, but for Lock Haven to be 10 and 12 over a 2-year stretch and be so close to breaking through for a winning season. Just the way that the culture changed there, elevating the expectations, bringing in some talent, including some that was translated to the next level. We congratulate Coach Mulroney for getting a position in Division I. The coaching position now passes to Joe Battaglia, one of his assistants, but really hard to overstate the impact he had on recalibrating the expectations for Lock Haven football.
Definitely. And, kind of, putting it in footballisms here, it's the thing. If you don't believe in yourself, why would you expect that anybody else is going to believe in you? And I think with Coach Moyer, that was the thing of the, and again, post on X and everything. But you know what? It was an entire culture change, and those guys believed in themselves. So whether anybody on the outside did or didn't, they believed in themselves. And, again, I think that was a great thing. And again, as far as a program and their involvement in the community, positive impact, their student athletes making positive choices on things. I think it was a positive boost culturally. And again, sky's the limit. Again, they've got, some question marks, as we go through, but, that said, your notes section and, somebody to talk about here, with quarterback, Jason Ostrowski coming back, nominated for the Harlan Hill Award, a year ago. Side note, talked a little bit about, those guys in the league, former Harlan Hill nominee there with Chris Collier, running back, led the NFL Raiders in the preseason. They're rushing. He has made their practice squad now. So again, it's like, Lock Haven, but hey, they've got some playmakers, and with Ostrowski back, there's a lot of opportunity to continue on what they've had success-wise on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, their situation feels a bit like East Stroudsburg's. They're very well set at the quarterback position. They have their guy very well entrenched, an elite player at that position. Building up around him is where I have some questions. They, again, lost a lot of production from the running back position, wide receivers. So a lot of holes to fill there. They've got some offensive linemen that are back, but they've got a few other spots that they have to fill. So I think it's really more on building out the skill position depth on the offensive side of the ball that will be important for them early in the season. Defensively, I think they're in pretty good shape, especially in the back half of that defense. And as we look at the Bald Eagles schedule, give you a little bit of a different look to get kind of the panoramic of the beautiful view there at Hubert Jack Stadium. And that's only part of the beautiful view. If you've never been there, it's quite a place to see a game. Opening up with Glenville State out of the Mountain East. That's a game where I think they can compete. And I think it's going to be really important to get a win there, Cary, because when you look at the rest of that schedule, it's tough. This is going to be a very difficult schedule. It was last year as well. They still came out of that with a pretty decent record, but this is a very difficult schedule for year one with a new head coach.
Definitely. And again, as you look through September there, IUP not in our top 25 in the preseason, but the expectation there is always being right there at the end. California, of course, had a very successful run for Region 1 in the playoffs last year. And, high expectations from them in the West again. And then, of course, East Stroudsburg, not in our top 25, but they're in that group of 5 right afterwards. So, that's a pretty hefty schedule there through September with 2 teams from the West, and then, East Stroudsburg at the East. Bloomsburg, we just talked about, are they going to be turning the corner and heading into October, of course, with Kutztown, that'll be a test, but, so it's kind of a little bit of a flip here, a lot of, buzzsaw types of games early on, and then, a little bit more favorable possibly towards the end of the schedule for the Bald Eagles.
Yeah, no doubt. That first half of the season looks pretty daunting, but we'll see if they can come through it strong and finish out with some wins late in the year. Well, let's press on and round this out with our final couple of teams. We have Shippensburg coming in at 7th. It's actually where they finished last year. Just 2 wins on the season for the Raiders. Really difficult season. Of course, they had some very difficult situations that happened, while they were in camp or just getting ready for camp, that really just made things very difficult for them as a family, as an organization. Young team in a lot of areas last year, so they only get out of that with the 2 wins. The thing is, Cary, when I look at them, it feels like they're still very, very young in a lot of areas. What I do like for them is that their offensive line looks really good. They bring back almost everybody that started most of last season. Some of those guys were very young, but earned a lot of really good experience and were performing really well by the end of the season. I thought center A.J. Baldwin was really kind of a rock for them. And they've got some guys around him that I think are really good. So this is another program that, again, the skill positions on offense are probably what we're going to be looking at the most, but I do like what they've got at the offensive line.
No, definitely. And, like we said, all starts up front. And, of course, got a, maybe not as big of a splash as some of the OCs that we talked about coming in the West or here in the East. But in addition to the coaching staff, working with quarterbacks and on the offensive side of the ball is Braden Long. So he was the quarterback at Slippery Rock last year. A lot of accolades for his athletic performance, a great student as well. So it'll be interesting. And I know we got the schedule coming up that'll pop up here in a minute. But, so Braden Long, again, and what he brings, as far as, success and expectations, it'll be kind of neat to see, making the transition from being a player, just a season ago to now coaching here in the East, coming from the West.
Yep. All right. And can you believe 15th season for Coach Mack at the helm at Shippensburg? That doesn't seem possible. It feels like it was just last year that he got that job, and already heading into year 15 as the head man with the Raiders. So let's take a look at that schedule. I like that out of conference game. Bowie State coming up from the CIAA. Of course, they were for several years kind of the class of that league. They're still a very competitive team. That is a tough season opener, but a chance for the Raiders to kind of make a statement if they could come out of that with a win. And then at Cary, and that was a very dramatic game that they played with the Golden Eagles a year ago. And then Slippery Rock before they head into the PSAC East schedule. So very interesting season opener. I like that game there for the Raiders to kick it off.
No, we've talked about a lot of crossovers, with the MEC or, possibly some Northeast 10 schools. So, with having that, that's a little bit different for us. So, that'll be a great opportunity to kind of see where this Raider team is at. And again, Clarion, some question marks there. So, first 2 games, an opportunity to kind of get their legs underneath them, before they head into that game where, a little bit of a homecoming for Coach Long now heading back to the Rock.
Yeah, and that season opener is an in-region game this year. The CIAA is part of Super Region 1. Of course, the Great Midwest moved out of SR1. The CIAA comes in, which CIAA has been in SR1 in the past, and we welcome them back this year. So that's an in-region game, so adds a little bit of extra significance to that. And we'll bring this to an end in looking at the PSAC East teams with team number 8, Millersville Marauders. That's where they finished at last year, just a single win on the season. And it came all the way down to the last play of the last game to finally secure that win, Cary. They get the walk-off field goal at Edinboro. 0-10 up to that point. Didn't necessarily look great at times during that game. They got out of it with the win, and I thought they really deserved to win that game. So a couple things that give me hope for Millersville heading into the season. And I know coming off a 1-10 campaign, doesn't feel like there's a whole lot to feel positive about starting a new season. A couple of things that give me hope. One, they never stopped trying to win games last year. They had several that got away from them, but they had a couple where they were competing and it just didn't work out for them. But they never stopped trying to win football games. They competed very hard every game all the way through the end of the season. And you saw that in that final game at Edinboro. So there's a lot to be said for a group that can fight that hard when it feels like there's nothing left to play for. I really like that for them. It says a lot about who they are as a team. The other thing I really like, Cary, some additions to the coaching staff. So they've got a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Both of those gentlemen have head coaching experience. Brian Ferguson, the offensive coordinator, was at Concord the last couple of years. His stint as a head coach did not go well, but he ran some very good offenses as the OC at Concord. I think he's a really good addition to the staff. Ralph Clark comes back to Millersville He had been on staff before. He's the defensive coordinator. He was the head coach at Alvernia. So you bring in some guys that have head coaching experience, and even the special teams coordinator, Gerard Wilcher, also has a season of head coaching experience in Division II. So I really like how they've bolstered the coaching staff, and that could make a real difference for this Marauders team heading into a new season.
No doubt. And, you have an OC coming in that's got his branded offensive system with the Sunday system offense. So that will be exciting. Coach Clark, again, Alvernia, close by to me here in the Reading area, started a football program, and he was the HC as that program started. Also spent some time with Albright. Two of the, again, we talk about how amazing it is with all the D2 schools we have here in Pennsylvania. There's a heck of a lot of amazing D3 schools as well. So, exciting. And again, Coach Morgan, really good guy. Enjoy when, I get to the Ville and having conversations, with him. And I like what you said there, Chuck, of they don't ever stop playing. And, that's something that, either guys do or they don't. And, Coach Morgan, brings those guys in and they don't stop playing. So, hopefully some opportunities here for them early on, and they can, experience some success and put something together and not be where the coaches poll has them at the end of the season.
Well, let's take a look at that schedule that they will be navigating. So another program that has kind of the rare 2 out-of-conference games, and both of theirs at the start of the season. And remember, that goes back to the departure of Mercyhurst out of the West Division, creating some holes in the schedule. So the Marauders open with Frostburg State. Of course, Frostburg opens with Shepherd the week before. So they open with Frostburg State at home and then Glenville State on the road. That's an opportunity, Cary. I mean, both of those teams should be a notch above where the Marauders are, but those are teams that from a talent perspective, they should be able to match up with and compete with. If you're well prepared, you have a good game plan, potentially some opportunities to steal a win and get the season off on a positive note.
No, most definitely. And, crossover then with IUP, but, as far as the East kind of, going through the schedule with the PSAC East, some varying levels of difficulty there as they go through. It's not all stacked at one spot. So, maybe, the Ville can kind of put some things together here and, again, make a step up from where they're predicted to be here in the coaches poll.
All right. Well, we'll bring this to a tidy conclusion. One of the things that I know we wanted to mention, Cary, we kind of talked about the fact that right now we have an imbalance in the divisions. Traditionally, it's been 8 teams on both sides of this. Mercyhurst reclassified to Division I prior to last season. So now we have 7 teams in the West and 8 in the East. That will change in the near future. And we knew that the PSAC was looking to expand and get back to even numbers. So we knew to expect that probably coming pretty soon. I do think they surprised us a little bit with the direction that they went with the program that's going to be coming in to the PSAC in the coming future. So we will be welcoming Lackawanna College, currently a member of the National Junior College Athletics Association. They're going to go through a massive undertaking to transition to Division II, and they have been invited to join the PSAC. So huge institutional change. I know we can talk a little bit more about that, but simply from a football perspective, Cary, it's a junior college program, but it is a highly successful one. Look at the numbers there for head coach Mark Duda, more than 30 years at the program, 26 winning seasons. And when they join the PSAC and start playing Division II football, on day one, he is going to be one of the winningest coaches in NCAA Division II. So it's a very successful program. I know you know a little bit more about it as well.
Yeah. So I got to start with your understatement there, Chuck. They surprised us a little bit. And again, just all the stuff in the off season on X and all the guessing games of, who's in Division III that's ready to step up, and, your Sinus, Grove City is in the mix. Oh, who in D1 FCS is going to come down, but again, so then it's like, so the official language invitation to Lackawanna College, in June of 2025 was made. So again, there's some other, areas of the country, some other, states. You think of California, and the JUCO league out there. So again, it's not unless you're really kind of into the whole scope of football, guys coming out getting recruited out of high school, or some guys that kind of, bouncing back or whatever. Here's the thing, Lackawanna College, they always get dudes. And, again, nothing against coaching staffs out there. We got a lot of great coaching staffs, but if you don't have the dudes, it doesn't really matter. And so, the big thing will be, and again, this is bigger than football. And I know I said on the West show, it's like, oh my God, this team's so much better in football. Why are we not making the jump? When they look at this, they're looking at a whole college athletics program. So again, Mercyhurst, giving up 50 points a game the year before they left, but it's all the other sports, ice hockey on down. So here again, it's when PSAC is looking to bring somebody in, it's looking at the whole body of work of the athletic department. So football wise, though, this is super exciting. So it's going to be great. Again, everything in society, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. So the invitation's been made. Lackawanna's, got to do their pieces of going through the process to make the jump. But, really excited about it.
Yeah, Commissioner Murray's language, the way he framed this when, he led on that we're talking with some programs about potentially expanding the conference. He had said in Pennsylvania, not currently in NCAA Division II. Which, of course, as you know, for Pennsylvania, that still leaves you a long list of options, right? We have tons and tons of Division III programs. I was considering the possibility of a D1 drop back because we've seen that in a few places around the country. I can't tell you how many options I would have gone through before I landed on Lackawanna College being, a program that's going to reclassify to Division II. But the more we started to look at it, the more it makes sense, certainly for them and where they're at. And like you said, there's going to be a lot of milestones that they have to get through just to get to Division II. So it's not a done deal. Of course, I feel very comfortable that everyone in the PSAC would have vetted this extremely carefully. So this is set up for success. So I don't have any concerns that they're not going to make it through that process. But it's still a big process to navigate. I have some questions about facilities. I think basketball is really the only thing that they play on campus. All their field sports are off campus. I have some questions about that. I'd like to see a big commitment to add and improve facilities so you're playing things on campus, but we'll allow those details to unfold. And at the moment, we'll just be excited about the fact we're going to have a really successful football program joining the league here, not too far down the road. And before we transition off of that, Cary, I know sometimes it's difficult to repeat yourself, but on the West show, we're not going to assume everybody watched that. You had a lot of things to say about just where the PSAC is overall. You're kind of heading into it's the 75th anniversary. So if you want to talk about year one, I know you were writing the column back in year one of 75 for the PSAC. If you want to give us a history lesson, but obviously teasing a bit, but tell us a little bit about just kind of overall your feelings about where the PSAC is as a league.
No. So again, going back to its inception back in 1951, I was not born yet, Chuck, but no, it's just great. As Chuck mentioned, 75 years now with the PSAC. You look at the PSAC again, it's we focus on football. It's much bigger than football. With Lackawanna coming in, you're talking about 18 schools. We talk about 15 right now, Lackawanna 16 for football. Mansfield, who some folks remember back in the day from the football perspective, has a sprint program. University of Johnstown, is in. They do not have a football program, but participate in other sports. But just looking back here and looking at the football perspective, Gannon came in 2000. Seton Hill came in 2013. Shepherd, of course, very successful football program. Division II came in 2019. And just paying a little homage to some of the schools from the past. Of course, I saw them play live, several times. Cheney was with with the PSAC from when it started in 1951, all the way through 2018. LIU Post was an associate member from 2008 to 2013, and Mercyhurst, who of course we've talked about now, has left, came in 28 and was here, till 2024. So I think it's, great, especially with the celebration here of 75 years of the PSAC, to kind of look at the conference as well. Again, many of these teams that we just talked about here on our PSAC East preview, have been, part of this for the 75 years. We're here in the, 1951 and have grown with the conference. And again, from the football perspective, to have a league and have, an East and West division with the amount of teams we have. Again, I know we do have some players on our PSAC teams that are from out of state, but to have the amazing, high school football programs we have in Pennsylvania that are really, providing the lion's share of the players on our teams, is just amazing. Couple that with all the amazing Division III schools, D1 FCS. Obviously, we have some very successful D1 FBS programs as well. But I think it speaks to and I've always been in Pennsylvania, played my high school ball, my college ball, coached at all levels, here, and now, honored to be able to cover the PSAC for, D2football.com. I think it really speaks to, Pennsylvania as a state, and, it's amazing, and no disrespect to any of the other states in the nation, but who else could pull off, having this many Division II teams, in a conference that is a state athletic conference, and being able to put out, year after year. I talked about this through my columns through the end of last year. When you looked at the top 4 teams there, all in contention with Super Region 1, looking at, Kutztown, East Stroudsburg, Slippery Rock, California, PA, and I was putting in the winning percentage of all those teams. And the only losses that those teams had were to top 25 teams from our D2 football, poll. So it's like, again, it's not everybody's going to be, at that 900, 850 win percentage stuff. But, the top teams that we're putting out from the PSAC, you think if all these guys were just on a few teams, but again, the ability that our young people have in the state of Pennsylvania and the amount of opportunities they have to play college ball at the D2 level, D3, D1 FCS, FBS. I get very passionate about it. I love it. I think it's amazing. 75 years here with the PSAC, and, just super excited, kind of circling back to where we started the show, getting ready here with week 0 to kick off this 2025 season. So that said, nice segue, Chuck, to go into week 0.
Yeah, no, it's no doubt. I like it when your passion comes out. And of course, that's why we're here, right? That's why we do this. This is a passion project for us. And, I have very strong feelings about it too. And it's the depth of the league that I always point to when you look at the number of teams from a football perspective, the number of programs who have been in the playoffs in the past decade, the number of programs who have been in the top 25 polls in the past decade. There's other teams out there. There's other leagues out there that have a few teams that are more elite, but very few conferences that have the depth that the PSAC does. And of course, like I said, I love it too. I'm a graduate of a PSAC institution. It's why I fell in love with D2 football to begin with. Not just the school I went to. I got involved in going to lots of different games around all of the schools around Pennsylvania. And man, football here in Pennsylvania in the fall is a real treat, especially when you get into October and November. It's pretty hard to beat. So before we can get there, though, we do have a couple games coming up, Cary. We've got week 0 kicking off. Just a few games on the schedule. Everybody else will really kind of get the season going a week from now. But we do have a trio of Thursday night games. We've got Wheeling and Clarion. Edinburgh and East Stroudsburg, of course, that's the only game that involves 2 PSAC teams. And then Fairmont State and Seton Hill, they played last year as well. And then on Saturday, just a pair of games, we have Davenport coming down from the GLIAC in Michigan to play Gannon. And we really like this Shepherd and Frostburg State matchup. I think that's a really good one to happen. I think that's already signed up for like a 4-year arrangement. Love to see that on the schedule. And I think that's a great opportunity for both of those programs on the first weekend of football.
No, definitely. And again, with having the 2 PSAC schools with Edinburgh, crossing over, coming from the West East, Stroudsburg, a night game up at Eiler Martin Stadium. Again, the light show, that they have now with their lighting system up there, always a great atmosphere. Get to see what both of these teams have. And again, I said it's kind of neat, kind of watching Frostburg State, as they went through their season last year. Shepherd going in there, Shepherd will get to see, a little bit of what they've got. Want to see what running back, Malachi Brown and Jordan Barrett do, in that game. So really excited about the week 0, and then heading into next week, get back into my columns as we head into week 1, and we have all of our PSAC teams back in action.
All right. Well, that brings us to a tidy conclusion for the previews. Again, this was the PSAC East. So if you got to the end of this one, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't seen the PSAC West preview we did that as a separate video. So go check that out as well. These are the teams that kick us off this weekend. Everybody else, we still have a week to kind of catch up on all this preseason material before they get going next week. So, Cary, can't thank you enough for jumping on to do this, to give these teams the shout outs that they deserve, and the accolades they deserve, and the recognition for just getting us through the start of another season. Really appreciate you being here. And I know we'll be back a few times throughout the season, hopefully not every week at this point, because we have a lot of things that we do here at D2 Football, and you and I both have busy schedules, but we'll try to check in when we can a few times throughout the season, and we will definitely back for the playoffs. So thank you to everyone who was watching, and be sure to hit d2football.com for all of your news throughout every game week, especially in the PSAC.